Hey, Mike, I'm so excited to have you back on 286 Sunshine. You're going to be hosting a series of shows. You've got some candidates that you want to talk about. It is election time, and it is time for everybody to know where your candidates stand. Now, you have some special candidates that you're going to be doing some personal interviews with. And these are mega candidates up for election in Florida that are challenging the rhinos. And you're going to tell me why that's important. And then we will get to today's guest. Take it away. You're going to be hosting the next 11 shows. I may or may not be here for all of them, but this is your show. So go ahead, Mike. What do you have to say?
Thank you, Sabrina Watson and 286 Sunshine. This is Mike Cartwright, your host, and we're broadcasting here live, Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida. And yes, we have 11 supervisor of election candidates from the free state of Florida, and we're going to be introducing each and every one of them to you separately in a show that I'll be hosting and going county by county. First off, we will have I'm going to name these counties, and then we'll talk more later on about each candidate. But these 11 counties are Alachua, Charlotte, Collier, Hillsborough, Lake, Lee, Monroe, Palm Beach, Pinellas, Seminole, and St. Lucie. We have 11 candidates we'll be bringing to you.
So, Mike, I do need to point out there is something special about these 11 candidates. Have they not received some kind of, well, let me just tell you what the Gateway Pundit says about your 11 candidates. General Flynn says local action has a national impact. We need to stop the steal even in red Florida. Florida's divisions in the Republican Party are widening, and this will likely continue over the next couple of years as patriots are fighting back against the Uniparty. 11 candidates are running on a slate for county supervisor of election offices in Florida. This is bound to shake things up in Florida GOP primary and cause a panic up in Tallahassee because SOE races are typically not primaried. What's special about these 11 candidates?
Each one of them is challenging an incumbent because they want to bring back election integrity. They want to have accountability and transparency. Many of these candidates are within the same party as the incumbent, but they think that there's a problem and they want to bring back accountability and transparency.
Now, do these incumbents have any special endorsements of any kind?
Well, collectively, these 11 have been endorsed by Mike Lindell.
Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted to hear. So let's get on to it, and be sure to introduce your next guest whenever you're ready.
Hello, I'm Mike Cartwright. I'm here on 286 Sunshine. We want to thank our host, Sabrina Watson, for joining us. Today, we have a special guest, one of our 11 Florida SOE Patriot candidates running for office in each one of their respective office. Today, our special guest from Pinellas County running for supervisor of election is Mr. Chris Gleason. Thank you for joining us, Chris. Let me introduce you. Chris Gleason, an expert in technology, data, and finance, a serial entrepreneur and Army veteran who created a search engine and a secure communications platform for content creation, has spearheaded election integrity projects in Florida and nationwide after uncovering the largest finance violations in U.S. history. His work has been featured in the Gateway Pundit, Epic Times, Miami Independent, and many more. His website is gleasonforpinellas.com. Welcome, Chris Gleason, Pinellas County candidate for supervisor of election. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Fine, great. And we want to thank our host, 286 Sunshine and Sabrina Watson.
Thank you, Sabrina.
So today we're going to hear from Chris Gleason, and he's going to tell us about his candidacy. And we have some images that we would like to share to emphasize some of the messages that he is going to be bringing. Our first image is to point out so to make sure everybody again knows Today's guest is from Pinellas, and here again is our map of the 11 counties that we're featuring each one of the SOE candidates one at a time. And again, today we have Chris Gleason from Pinellas County. Chris, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your campaign.
Sure. So I've been working here in Florida and nationwide, exposing massive campaign finance violations and money laundering operations tied to Act Blue and the Democrat Party and the Uniparty across America. We had first identified it in Washington State when I was working on a data project for a congressional campaign there. We then identified that this RICO money laundering enterprise was also going on in Oklahoma. And then we expanded our search into Florida. And then from Florida, we went and hit essentially state after state, uncovering this massive network of fraud, identity theft, elder abuse, money laundering tied to Soros, Chinese Communist Party, and European globalists. And it's been kind of crazy. I got involved here in Florida based on some of the things that we had found both here with campaign finance, and that led me into voter rolls and vote by mail fraud, which vote by mail fraud season is kicking off today here in Florida. Today is the day that vote by mail ballots are all being sent out. And we have some really interesting stuff that we recently uncovered here in Pinellas County, in Hillsborough County, in Palm Beach County, in Lee County, and I suspect it's going on everywhere else too. We know, based on what we've seen as previous patterns of fraud, is that the voter rolls are in terrible shape, and that what they do is they will use vote by mail ballots and bad mailing addresses to create a large pool of fraudulent vote by mail ballots by which the election fraud mafia can rig the primary election and rig general elections.
Do you want to show us the Clearwater example?
We can get there and do that.
Whenever you want to get to it, you've got control. Sure. You can do that.
Yeah. So one of the things that this morning I woke up to was a hit piece by the Tampa Bay Times calling me an election denier. And I found that quite funny because I had already provided a great deal of evidence and information to the Tampa Bay Times, both to numerous reporters and to their editorial board. And so I ended up replying to them. And in this chain of email, I extensively covered all of these election crimes and evidence that we have uncovered here in Florida. And I can share the screen and I can show you what we're talking about. So one of the interesting things that we uncovered previously were massive numbers of blank ballots. We discovered this all across Florida. We discovered this first in Lee County. And
blank ballots. Let's explain to the audience, Chris, what the heck is a blank ballot?
Well, that was what we wanted to know. And so we dug and we tried to find out what a blank ballot was. But unfortunately, the supervisor of elections in Lee County wasn't very forthcoming. So we rolled up our sleeves and we got to work. And what we quickly found was that a blank ballot was a ballot that had not one single voting position on it. And so we asked the question, well, who in their right mind would go out and on election day, during early voting, or vote by mail, or even provisionally, and go out and cast a 100% blank ballot?
Well,
And
wait a
so,
minute, Chris, I want to make sure I understand that 100% blank ballot. And when people go to vote, there's numerous races and campaigns, 10s, 20, sometimes 30 different things to be elected. What are you telling me, blank ballot? How much of these ballots are blank? I don't understand that.
so according to the voting machine manufacturer manual and the United States Election Assistance Commission, and Maria Matthews, the director for the Florida Division of Elections, a blank ballot is a ballot that has not one single mark on it, not one single voting position has
Not
been filled
one
in.
single voting position, and that's when there could be 10, 20, or 30 or more different races. And you're telling me that they are counting that as a blank ballot, and then these people who voted in all these different races, it's just counted as one blank ballot and nobody gets. That's insane. Who would do that? Who would come to vote and not at least vote in some, if not all, of each and every one of those races?
Well, we asked that question all over the place, all over the country. And we saw that where there was massive fraud in the election and Donald Trump had lost the 2020 election in these areas, there was large numbers of either blank ballots or unreadable ballots. And we asked more questions. And so we ended up obtaining a copy or copies of the operators manuals for the machine manufacturers. And what we did was we put together a public records request and we sent it out to every single county in the United States that used these ES&S tabulators. And so we were for a period of about 10 days, we were sending out close to 2,000 public records requests per day. And we started getting more clarity as to what was going on. And what we found is that in certain areas, they weren't reporting any blank ballot data at all. In some areas, they would show 0 blank ballots or 1 or 2. And that 1 or 2, maybe 20, that might be okay. But what we saw in places like Broward County, right? We saw as many as 188,000 blank ballots being cast between early voting, election day, vote by mail, and provisionally. Now, let me ask you a question, Mike. Do you really think that 25% of all the registered voters in Broward County during the 2018 election would have gone out and cast a 100% blank ballot?
No, and so I want to understand that you're saying 188,000, and that's what about 25% of the voters are there in Broward County. You're trying to tell me that their supervisor of election is claiming that 25% of their voters showed up to vote, got their name and everything registered, but their ballots were not counted because somehow or another they judged them as blank.
That's correct. Didn't make sense to us either.
Do you have
And
any
so
idea of what, how about Pinellas? Do you have anything directly about Pinellas about that? You want to describe that?
We do. We have a lot. Yeah, so we have a lot. So here in Pinellas County, what they did is they altered the election reports to not reflect any blank ballot data whatsoever, which is a problem. Okay. And so I was trying to obtain the number of blank ballots. So I sued the supervisor of elections, Julie Marcus, over this. And so what she claimed, she perjured herself, and she offered a perjured affidavit to the court. And she said, "Oh no, we don't have to give you, there was nothing here, and I can report whatever information I want on this, and there's nothing to see here." And so what I did was I did further public records requests, and there was actually a form that they could not redact and that they could not conceal from me. And this form was called the DSDE 40 form. And they were required by law to provide and complete this form after the election. And then this form is then used to create an audit of the state and to make sure that there are no problems with the ballots or with the machines. And so this form showed many thousands, over 16,000, over six, I think it was like 16,800 and some blank ballots. And that was what I had alleged in my original complaint, which the judge dismissed, saying, "Oh, there's nothing to see here." And what Julie Marcus said is okay, yet she didn't provide any proof of that. Now, what we knew is we have obtained from other counties all across America that Julie Marcus intentionally leaving off this blank ballot information was her own doing. She intentionally concealed the true number of blank ballots on this report. Now, that's a problem. We tried to reopen the case based on new facts and evidence. And the judge, she refused to reopen the case, saying that there was nothing to see here and that we didn't do our due diligence and that, it didn't matter that over the course of 2 elections, close to 40,000 Pinellas County voters were actually disenfranchised. Now, the judge did this, mind you, related to elections that she was a candidate in. That would be a conflict of interest. That would be a violation of her judicial canons. And, I'm not an attorney, but I did a really good job of pleading my case. I actually had filed a motion for discovery, and the judge never ruled on my motion for discovery either. She never. So, I'm new at this, right? I'm not an attorney. I'm a concerned citizen. And so the judge was participating in this election fraud and in this subversion of our constitutional form of government. Okay. So what we've done is we've really fleshed this out nationwide. We have lots of evidence about this. And so I ended up having no choice but to run for supervisor of elections here in Pinellas County, because we clearly weren't going to get discovery. We clearly weren't going to get the truth. And, these judges nationwide, they like to kick cases out for standing. Well, as a candidate for the supervisor of elections, I've got standing now. And so I announced my candidacy. We waited till the last minute to file. And when I did, a reporter for the Tampa Bay Times came out. Her name is Tracy McManus from the Tampa Bay Times. And she quickly said, you are making false claims about what a blank ballot is. Julie Marcus and Dustin Chase, they said that a blank ballot it's actually a page of a multi-page ballot. I'm like, well, that's not what Maria Matthews, the director for the Division of Elections, completed in a survey, or multiple surveys rather, that she submitted to the United States Election Commission. That's not what the certification form for the voting systems says. And that's not what the machine manufacturers say. So this morning, I wake up to an article and they're calling me an election denier and saying that I don't have any of the information. Now, mind you, I provided copies of all of these documents to the Tampa Bay Times. I provided them all to NPR. I provided them all to the AP. I've provided them all on my Substack. And, you know, we have several cases currently in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals tied to blank ballots and the concealing of election records and the altering of election records. And, you know, we're facing, you know, quite a bit of resistance here, but it's not based on any kind of fact or any kind of logic or anything real at all. And that's why we have 11 supervisor of election candidates all running across Florida, because they all have seen exactly the things that I've seen. They have seen official misconduct by election supervisors. They have seen official misconduct on the part of Maria Matthews. They have seen official misconduct on the part of Cord Byrd, the Secretary of State. We have seen official misconduct on the part of the Office of Election Crimes and Security. We have seen official misconduct on the part of Governor Ron DeSantis. We have seen official misconduct on the part of Ashley Moody. We have seen official misconduct on the part of Sheriff Bob Galtieri. We have seen official misconduct on the part of Bruce Bartlett. We have seen official misconduct on the Chief Justice here in the Sixth Circuit Court of Pinellas County, because they are concealing, delaying, altering public records to us, we the people. And so here we are. We are in a fight for our votes. We are in a fight for our ballots. We are in a fight for the Constitution, because they have no consent of the governed, and we can show it. So if you look at this image that we have here, this is part of my email to Tracy McManus that I sent out this morning. And it says here, you know, that I read her
article.
article.
That image with us?
I sure can. So I'm going to share that right now. So I'm scrolling down here. Okay. Now, right here, you can see that we call out Maria Matthews. We call her out and we say, look at Miss Matthews, maybe you can chime in here in this email thread, because she's copied on it. Maria Matthews and Tracy McManus are in this email. So is in Cord Byrd. And so as we, in this email, I lay out all of the evidence that I've already provided to them. I talk about how they're not being transparent and how we actually obtained what these definitions of a blank ballot were by a public records request. Now, what we also discussed in this rather long email chain going back 2 years ago, and we go back about the dirty voter rolls. We go back to all of this misfeasance and malfeasance in elections, to include a revisit of something really, really troubling. So here we have, I had initially made back in 2022, in the lead up to the 2022 election, I made a complaint to the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections. And what I did was I challenged a very large number, individually, mind you, it was all individually. I created a legally sufficient affidavit for each and every single elector that we found violated Florida law.
I've got to ask an important question. Is the name and address of the people that you're putting on this image, is that going to be considered confidential? Is there going to be any kind of
Nope.
that's public record, and we can share that.
That's right. This is These are public records.
Pardon the interruption.
That's fine. These are public records. This is part of the voter roll. And this information here, I obtained via the Secretary of State's office here. And these individuals here, these are all people who live at a particular address in Clearwater. And what's interesting about this is that there was no delineating apartment number or unit number. So what this
So
means
as you're
is,
describing this, Chris, would you continue to scroll down to show the viewers the volumes of different people that have apparently not had their votes count? Is that correct?
yeah, well, these here are people who received allegedly a vote by mail ballot. And these people here on this list are going to have a vote by mail ballot sent out to them today. However, the problem with that is we don't know that these people are going to actually get their vote by mail ballot because there's no unit number here. And these
How many people live at 551 North Southern Avenue?
Hundreds of people allegedly live here.
And is
Maybe
that a
that's-
house or an apartment?
Well, this is a apartment complex. And this apartment complex is tied to the Church of Scientology. And this is what's called their flag organization. And so all of these individuals allegedly requested a vote by mail ballot. Now, what's particularly interesting is that all of these individuals who requested these vote by mail ballots, they all did it on the same day. A lot of them did it on the same day.
Would you keep scrolling down as we talk so we can just slowly keep scrolling while you're talking? Just keep hitting that scroll button.
Yeah.
We want the viewers to see. Do you have any idea how many, what this number is?
Hundreds.
Keep going down.
Hundreds.
We want everybody to see it. Don't stop on one while you're talking. Keep showing the viewers all of these.
And you notice that there's no unit number here. So that means that under Florida law, if a person who is not related to you is in possession of more than 2 vote by mail ballots, it is a felony. That is called ballot harvesting. Now, I want to draw your particular attention to the screen right here, because you can see that the email that they requested, okay, the vote by mail ballot via as part of the record here, it shows the same email address, okay, right here, flagserviceorg@flag.org.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay.
There we go. Now we got it. We just have.
Now we got it. And if you'll just keep scrolling through that, we want to show the volumes. Keep that image scrolling if you can while you're talking. It would be helpful for the viewers.
So here we go. We have a lot of addresses. And so as you can see here, there's a lot of addresses with
What's
no
flag.org?
That's for the flag organization for the Church of Scientology. This is their training center for all of the people who are being or new and are being indoctrinated. And they have various levels of their church, and you have certain color-coded uniforms that you wear and all that sort of stuff. So now we're actually getting to a point where we have some unit numbers, okay? Now, there are some unit numbers here that are going to start coming up, but we've got quite a few here, many that there were no unit numbers. So that tells us, right, that they're all using the same email address to request vote by mail ballots, right? And for their voter registration. Are these people really, are they even real? Are they, I mean, we don't know because they're all using the same email address.
So let me make sure that the viewers and I understand that @staff.flag.org is for the Church of Scientology in Pinellas. And you're saying that through that email platform, they are making these requests for vote by mail. They're making vote by mail requests.
It appears that way to me. I mean, when you look at this flag service org, at flag.org, I mean, you have quite a few of these. And these are all,
We're going to keep scrolling through that, Chris,
Yes.
so the viewers can see that while you're talking. Just keep using that finger, keep scrolling. We want everybody to see this because the clock is running.
Yeah. So here you go. I mean, we've got a lot, it's going. And so we have significant numbers of this. Massive numbers of this are going on. Yes, I get it. Yeah. And so here's where we're at, right? We go back to earlier, the first interchange going back October 25th, 2022. And I made a great deal of elector challenges based on this. And there was literally thousands that I had made based on undeliverable mailing addresses, based on a whole wide variety of issues that we are now going to see again in this election. And this is neglect of duty. This is misfeasance. This is real issues related
Wait
to
a minute. Is any of this criminal? And do you have any statutes that we can go ahead and look at?
Absolutely, it's criminal. Absolutely. Anything they do outside the official lines of their position can and should be considered criminal.
Okay, Chris, we're going to pull up some of those statutes that we can share them for you. So Sabrina's going to give us back the opportunity to share those statutes.
Chris has to unshare.
So Chris, you have to unshare because our host hasn't unshared it for you. And we want to show the viewers,
There you go.
because our clock is running, we want to let them know that some of this is criminal, and we're going to show them those statutes. So how about this one, Chris? Florida Statute 838.022. You want to describe that to the viewers?
Yes. So this one here is one, in my opinion, it's very low hanging fruit, because this really does encompass a lot of the felonies and frauds that we've seen committed here in Pinellas County and throughout Florida, to include the Secretary of State, to include Maria Matthews, to include the state attorney, to include Sheriff Galtieri, to include Julie Marcus, to include most of the supervisors of elections. So they're claiming, right, to be able to redact information. Really what they're doing is they're concealing the evidence of felonies. And that is official misconduct. And that in and of itself is a felony. So, we have some real issues here. And it appears that they are being woefully blind to a lot of the illegal acts that are going on. And at the end of the day, these aren't frivolous charges. These are serious, serious problems that bring into question, do we have...
Well, we just talked about 838. How about this one, Chris? Florida Statute 102.101.
So this one here, the sheriff and other officers are not allowed in a polling place. And so we saw in the 2020 election, we saw, thanks to James McManus, who ran against Sheriff Galtieri, he captured quite a bit of video. He captured video of sheriff's deputies taking possession of ballots.
No, are you serious? Can you show us that? What does that look like?
Well, that would look like right there. You have a bunch of sheriff's vehicles that are dropping off vote by mail ballots for his own election, mind you.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that the sheriff who is up for re-election is being permitted by the supervisor of election, who's also up for re-election, that like one hand washes the other. It's like, hey, why don't you transport these ballots for me? Is that legal? Is that ethical? The optics on this looks terrible.
Yeah, I would say so. So, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to give Sheriff Galtieri the benefit of the doubt, we did a public records request for the body cam images, the body cam footage, the dash cam footage. We asked for the chain of custody for these ballots from Sheriff Galtieri. And we also asked for the legal authority by which he claimed this authority to take possession of the ballots for his own election. And they said, we have no responsive records. So I think we have a problem with transparency here. We have a problem with custody, chain of custody. And so is questioning what they did really denying the election? No. I believe.
Is this the image you're describing right here?
That would be it.
Would you describe that image for us, Chris?
So this was the response from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office to my earlier public records request for dash cam footage, for body cam footage, for any kind of chain of custody documentation and or legal authorization that they had to take possession of the ballots. And they said that they had no responsive records. Now, what's curious about this is, I believe, Mike, do you know what the records retention requirements are as a sheriff? Would you know that, Mike?
For a sheriff to retain records, well, I guess there's probably variances based upon what you're talking about. Felonies, misdemeanors, jail records, uniform patrol. No, please, why don't you tell us what you know about this?
Well, I know that for election records, it's 2 years. Now, for 22 months, it's 22 months actually. And so we ask these questions. We ask, where's the legal authority? So they may have been able to have actually no video footage. That's a possibility, but we understand that. But surely they would have the chain of custody. Surely they would have a copy of the legal authorization, because they would have had that in an email, right? They would have had that in some type of written document because it's a public record, isn't it? But yet they've failed to provide that to us. And so James McManus and myself, we both sought out the responsive records at the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections office, because surely they would have it. And they too said that they had no responsive records with regards to the chain of custody for these ballots. I mean, you have to have chain of custody for possession of the ballots, right? So we've been uncovering quite a bit here. And, these other candidates all across Florida, they've been uncovering quite a bit too. Speaking of chain of custody, there's a guy by the name of Dave Kalin down a little south from where we're at. And Dave, they discovered a computer in a dumpster behind the Supervisor of Elections office. And they had bags of shredded ballots, bags of shredded documents. And they ended up taking possession of the computer from the trash, and they photographed it. They recorded the serial numbers on the computers, and they opened it up to look inside, and they had hard drives in them, and they took pictures of those and they documented those. And so Dave Kalin, he wanted to make sure that he was okay, so he had his attorney bring them to the Florida Election Crimes Unit. And Court Byrd, I guess, in the Election Crimes Unit ended up reaching back out to him. And they claimed that there was nothing recoverable from those hard drives on those computers because they were smashed beyond all recognition. And I found that really interesting, especially in light of the fact that he had images, and there was, I guess, a chain of custody for the turning over of this computer. And, you know, when you have official misconduct at the highest levels of election administration throughout Florida, are you an election denier, or are you just a concerned citizen wanting to have the truth? And I would say that none of us really wanted to sign up for this being slandered and being drugged through the mud, publicly by the propaganda media, like the Tampa Bay Times. I mean, I'm prepared to do it. I'm prepared to go through this because I care about my country. I care about my elections. And
well, we know that you care a lot, and you've been doing a great job, and we appreciate it. We know, and we want to make sure the audience know that you've been doing FOIA, public records requests, FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. I have an image here of one that you shared with me before about your FOIA request. Would you tell us what this is, please?
Oh, yes. That would be the transport of ballots. And this was provided to me by Julie Marcus's office. And so I don't know. I mean, I've seen, I've obtained these documents from other counties all across Florida, and they didn't read like this. They didn't read like the Kennedy assassination documents, because
what
here
we're looking at right here is one page, and it is completely redacted. There is not one paragraph, one sentence, one word of which has not been redacted. Why are these documents so heavily redacted? Aren't these public records? Don't these people serve we the people? Why is it that we can't have accountability and transparency in these public records requests?
Well, I would say that they're committing 838.022, because what what are we going to see underneath this document? I'm willing to bet that there's going to be something really interesting underneath here. So,
well, this is what I think is interesting, is that we need to vote for Chris Gleason, Pinellas County Supervisor of Election. That's what I think about it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, if people vote for me on August 20th, it's going to be wide open and transparent. And I'm all about transparency. I am all about transparency.
Well, why is it that it's important to have transparency? If you think that a candidate for office should be transporting ballots for their own race, raise your hand. Isn't that what these people, we just showed them?
That's unbelievable, Mike.
Evidence.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Official misconduct, treason. They have breached the public trust.
And it shows that the head of these two agencies are collaborating, and they both won their elections. And there were some questions about it. There was questions about that election. That's why thousands of people went to Washington, D.C. in 2021, because they had some questions about the election.
That's right. And because we know it wasn't right. I mean, I was, like I said, I was drafted to do this. I really didn't want to do it, but I know that if not me, then who? And there really was nobody more qualified here in Pinellas County. I mean, we exposed the fact that they have modems attached to these tabulators, and the modems are attached to the internet. And Julie Marcus lied about it. Julie Marcus lied about that multiple times in presentations she's given to Pinellas County voters. She lied about it on Twitter. If you go to Julie Marcus's Twitter account, Julie Marcus at Julie Marcus FL, you'll see, or Pinellas Votes. If you go to or Vote Pinellas, if you go Vote Pinellas, which is the official Twitter account for the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections, and you scroll through, they point blank say that they don't connect to the internet and that they're not that they don't have modems. And
How
they
can
do
you
have
have election integrity to anything that's tied to the internet and to the modem? And forgive me, because of our time constraints, I'm going to have to get to some points. Wait a minute, Chris. You're a Republican and you're running against a Republican in the primary. So that election date is August 20th. So you've got to get on the ball and get your message out. Why are you running against another Republican?
I'm running against another Republican because this Republican is a Republican in name only. And this Republican rigged the election against Donald Trump in the 2020 election and then concealed the evidence of her fraud. That's
well, I
why.
want to tell you, thank you. Principle over party, principle over party. You are trying to bring back accountability and transparency in our elections. I want to make sure that we give all the voters as much information. Public Service announced that they need to get registered by Monday, July 22nd to vote in an election. And then we're going to get some information from your website that explains your candidacy with your website. Let me see if I've got that here. Can you see that? That's Chris Gleason for Pinellas County Supervisor of Election. There's an email address and your website. Would you call out the name of your website?
Sure. That's GleasonForPinellas.com. That's Gleason, FOR, Pinellas.com.
Good information, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
So we want to thank everybody for joining us today. Chris Gleason from Pinellas County was our lead off of our 11 Patriot Florida candidates for Supervisor of Election. We will be having more of those candidates appear in the near future. We want to thank you and joining us. I'm your host, Mike Cartwright, here with Save America from Illegal Elections. Thank again our host Sabrina Watson and 286 Sunshine. Again, our special guest, Mr. Chris Gleason from Pinellas County. And thank you. And we look forward to you joining us again soon. God bless America.
God bless America. Amen.
Amen to that. Bye-bye.